The morning
Good
rush had just begun
morning.
when Daniel Brooks slammed his truck door and jogged across the street, coffee spilling over his fingers. "Ah, come on," he muttered, shaking the hot drops away. He was running late again. Mia's school bell always rang faster than his alarm seemed to work. "Dad, my backpack." Mia's small voice called from the passenger seat. He spun around, grabbed it, and tossed it toward her. She giggled as it landed in her lap. "Got it, kiddo?" he said, brushing off his flannel sleeves. "Let's roll before Mrs. Parker gives me the death stare again." Just another morning in Willow Creek. The same cracked sidewalks, the same sleepy streets, and the same stop at Harper's Pharmacy right after dropping his daughter off. It wasn't glamorous, but it was his rhythm. The only thing holding life together after losing his wife, Claire, 3 years ago. For Daniel, routine meant safety. It meant no surprises. But that morning, fate had other plans. He parked in front of the pharmacy, engine still rumbling, when he noticed a cab pulled up near the curb. The door swung open, and a woman struggled to pull a folded wheelchair toward her. Her hands trembled, her face tense with frustration. Without hesitation, Daniel jogged over. "Hey, need a hand?" She looked up, startled. Chestnut hair framed a pale face with tired eyes, but she managed a faint smile. Yes, thank you. It's just this ramp." "I got it," he said, already reaching for the chair. Together, they unfolded it and steadied it on the sidewalk. She eased herself into the seat with a soft sigh. "There you go," Daniel said, stepping back. "Thank you," she murmured. "You didn't have to." "Not a problem." He gave her a polite nod and turned toward the pharmacy. As he walked away, she called softly, "I'm Sophie, by the way." He turned back, surprised. "Daniel," he said. "Nice to meet you, Sophie." She smiled again, faint but warm, and for a reason he couldn't quite explain. That smile lingered in his mind for the rest of the day. He didn't expect to see her again. But the next morning, there she was, same place, same time, waiting for her taxi outside the pharmacy. Daniel hesitated, wondering if it would seem weird to say hi. Then Sophie dropped a small grocery bag, and instinct took over. He rushed forward, picking up the rolling apples before they could hit the gutter. "You've got fast fruit," he joked. She laughed softly. "And slow reflexes. Thank you again." "Guess we're making this a habit," he said with a grin. From that day, it became a quiet ritual. Every morning, he'd see her. Sometimes he'd help with her wheelchair, sometimes hold the door, sometimes just exchange a smile. She always looked grateful but shy, as if she wasn't used to kindness. One morning, his daughter noticed. "Dad, that's the same lady every day," Mia said from the truck window as Daniel waved goodbye to Sophie. He chuckled. "Yeah, I guess it is. Do you like her?" Mia teased. Daniel nearly choked on his coffee. "What? No. She's just someone I help out sometimes." "Uh-huh," Mia said, smirking in the rearview mirror. He tried to laugh it off, but his chest tightened. The truth was, he did feel something. Something quiet, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Days turned into weeks, and helping Sophie became part of his mornings. He'd catch himself looking for her before he even parked. And every time he saw her smile, something in him, something that had been numb for years, stirred back to life. One Wednesday morning, Sophie looked paler than usual. She was struggling with a grocery bag that had split open, spilling canned goods across the pavement. Daniel rushed over, kneeling beside her. "You okay?" he asked. "Just dropped my lunch," she said with a weak laugh. He helped gather the cans, noticing her shaking hands. "You sure you're all right?" "I'm fine," she whispered, but her voice cracked on the last word. Daniel hesitated, unsure if he should push further. Then she looked up at him, eyes glistening. "I just have bad days sometimes." He nodded softly. "Yeah, I know what that's like." She smiled faintly. "I bet you do." That afternoon, Daniel couldn't focus at work. Her words replayed in his head. I just have bad days sometimes. He wondered what she meant, what she carried behind that soft smile. The next morning, he decided to bring her something. A cup of coffee. Black, 2 sugars, he guessed. When he handed it to her, she looked genuinely startled. You remembered I like coffee? I didn't, he said. I guessed. Her laughter, small and real, broke through the chilly morning air. From that day on, their conversations grew. Small talk turned into stories. About Mia. About Sophie's love of painting. About Daniel's work. She told him she used to be a teacher before the accident. He didn't ask what accident, not yet. She didn't offer details, and he didn't push. Sometimes, silence was more comforting than words. A few weeks later, Mia insisted on giving Sophie something from home. A little pink flower from their garden. Because she looks like she needs something pretty, she said proudly. Sophie's voice broke as she took it. Thank you, sweetheart, she whispered. You have no idea how much that means. Daniel saw tears slip down her cheeks as she rolled away. That night, he lay awake thinking about her. Why do I feel like I've known her forever? The following Monday, Sophie wasn't there. Tuesday, still no sign. By Wednesday, Daniel's chest felt tight with worry. When she finally appeared on Thursday, she looked exhausted, pale, and distant. You okay? He asked as soon as he saw her. She nodded quickly. Just a rough week. You sure you're not pushing yourself too hard? Her lips trembled. You don't have to worry about me, Daniel. Yeah, he said softly. But maybe I want to. She froze, eyes widening. For a second, the air between them felt charged, fragile, uncertain, but real. Then she looked down and whispered, You're too kind. Before he could respond, her taxi honked, and she rolled away, leaving Daniel standing there with 1,000 questions and no answers. That night, while tucking Mia into bed, she asked, Dad, do you think Mom would be happy you help people? He froze. Yeah, he said finally. I think she would. Mia smiled sleepily. Then keep helping Miss Sophie. I think she needs you. Her words hit him harder than he expected. Maybe kindness wasn't just about helping others. Maybe it was how healing found its way back. The next few mornings, their conversations grew longer. Sophie talked about her husband, how she used to laugh more, travel more. Daniel listened quietly, his heart heavy but calm. You must miss him, he said once. Every day, she whispered. Then she looked at him. You know that feeling, don't you? He nodded slowly. Yeah, every night. Sophie sighed. Funny how strangers can understand you better than friends sometimes. He smiled gently. Maybe that's because strangers don't expect you to be fine. She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes shining. You really are different, Daniel. He didn't know what to say, so he just smiled and said, Guess I've had practice pretending I'm okay. Sophie laughed quietly, and for the first time, Daniel noticed how her laughter sounded, like sunlight breaking through clouds. If you're still watching this story on Story Realm TV, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Real stories like this one remind us how small acts of kindness can change lives, and sometimes save them. 1 week later, Daniel found her waiting outside the pharmacy as usual, but this time, something was different. She wasn't smiling. Her hands clutched her wheelchair tightly, knuckles pale. When he approached, she looked up, her lips trembling. Daniel, she whispered, you don't remember me, do you? He blinked. What do you mean? Her voice quivered. 3 years ago, the bridge accident, the rain, the car that went off the road. Daniel froze. The world tilted slightly as her words sank in. You were there, she said. You're the man who pulled me out of that car. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The sound of rain, screaming tires, and shattering glass crashed back into his mind all at once. He saw the headlights, the water, the broken guardrail. His hands began to shake. You were there? He whispered. Sophie nodded slowly. I remember. You pulled me from the car. You kept telling me to stay awake. I heard your voice even when everything went dark. Daniel took a step back, heart pounding. He hadn't spoken about that night in years. That accident, he stammered. There were 2 cars. One of them, he swallowed hard. My wife was in the other one. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Claire, she whispered. That was her name, wasn't it? Daniel's chest tightened so hard he thought he might break. How do you? I saw her, Sophie said, voice trembling. She was in the other car. Before the rescue team came, you were trying to help both of us. You held my hand while you waited for someone to reach her. I remember you crying her name. Daniel stared at her, his throat closing. You remember that? I'll never forget, she said softly. When I woke up in the hospital, they told me she didn't make it. I wanted to find you, to thank you, but I didn't know your name. Then one day I saw you again, here. You were helping me every morning, and I realized who you were. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. Not until now. Daniel turned away, pressing a hand over his mouth. The street noise faded, the world spinning around them. You knew this whole time? He said finally, his voice hoarse. Sophie's tears fell freely. I wanted to tell you, but every time I saw you with Mia, I couldn't. You were finally smiling again. You were healing. I didn't want to open that wound. He let out a shaky breath. I thought I'd buried that night. I told myself it was fate, that I couldn't have done more. But every time I close my eyes, I see her. And now you. Sophie reached for his hand. You did everything you could. You saved my life. I've lived with guilt for surviving when she didn't. But you, Daniel, you gave me a second chance. And I've watched you give others that same kindness every single day. He stared at her hand in his, the tremor in her fingers, the truth in her voice. For the first time in years, his tears didn't feel like weakness. They felt like release. You don't owe me anything, he said quietly. She shook her head. I owe you everything. They stood in silence for a moment, the city humming softly around them. A gentle wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint smell of rain. The same smell from that night. Only now it didn't sting. It soothed. Sophie smiled faintly through her tears. You know, every morning when you helped me with my wheelchair, I used to think you were just being nice. But I realized something. Maybe you were helping yourself, too. Daniel's eyes met hers. Maybe I was. He knelt beside her, voice low. Sophie, I thought losing Claire meant the world stopped. But somehow, helping you, it made me feel like she was still here. Like her kindness didn't die with her. Sophie nodded. Maybe she sent you to remind me the same thing. For the first time since his wife's death, Daniel smiled. Not the polite kind he used at work or at school drop-offs, but a real, deep smile that reached his eyes. The honk of Sophie's taxi broke the moment, but neither of them moved. I'll see you tomorrow? Daniel asked quietly. Sophie hesitated. Actually, I wanted to ask if you and Mia might visit my art class this weekend. I teach kids now, just part-time. I think she'd love it. Daniel blinked. You're teaching again? She nodded proudly. Started a month ago. I figured if I was given another chance, I should use it to help someone else. He smiled. You sound just like Claire. Sophie's eyes softened. Then I'm doing something right. That weekend, Daniel and Mia walked into the small art center by the park. The room was filled with laughter, splashes of color, and the smell of acrylic paint. Sophie sat near the window, surrounded by children waving brushes like wands. Miss Sophie, a little boy shouted. My tree looks like spaghetti. She laughed, wheeling over to help. When she spotted Daniel and Mia, her face lit up. You made it. Mia ran up, holding a jar of paint. Miss Sophie, Daddy said you're the lady he helps every morning. Daniel's ears turned red, but Sophie laughed. He's more than that, sweetheart. He's a hero. Like Superman? Mia asked. Sophie winked. Better. He's real. As they painted together, Daniel noticed the photos pinned on Sophie's board. Kids smiling, volunteers helping, and one small framed picture of the river bridge. Under it, a quote read, "Kindness doesn't erase pain. It teaches us how to live with it." When class ended, Sophie handed Mia a tiny canvas with a painted sunflower. "This one's for you," she said softly, "because sunflowers always turn toward the light." Mia grinned, "Like Daddy does." Daniel looked at Sophie, heart swelling with something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked. "For reminding me life still has color." She smiled. "It always did. You just stopped seeing it." That evening, as Daniel tucked Mia into bed, she whispered, "Dad, do you think Mom met Miss Sophie in heaven first?" He paused. "Maybe she did. Then maybe Mom told her to find us," Mia said sleepily, "so we wouldn't be sad anymore." Daniel's eyes burned. "Maybe she did, kiddo." Later that night, he sat on the porch, the old photograph of Claire in his hand. The stars shimmered above, faint and far but steady. He looked up and whispered, "Thank you." A soft ping pulled him from his thoughts. A message from Sophie. "Sophie, thank you for letting me be part of your mornings. You saved my life twice. Once on that bridge and again every day since. Daniel, you saved mine too." The next morning, Daniel stopped by the pharmacy again, but this time, he didn't just help Sophie with her wheelchair. He brought 2 coffees and a small paper bag. "What's this?" she asked. "Breakfast," he said. "Thought we could share it before you go teach." Sophie laughed. "You really don't give up on helping people, do you?" "Not when it feels right," he said with a grin. They sat together on the curb, sipping coffee as the town woke around them. The world wasn't perfect. There were still scars, still rain, but in that small moment, everything felt whole. If you've made it this far, thank you for being part of the story here on Story Realm TV. Remember, sometimes the smallest act of kindness can rewrite someone's entire life. So before you go, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs a little hope today. Because kindness doesn't just change others, it changes us. As the sun rose over Willow Creek, Daniel glanced at Sophie beside him. She was smiling, eyes closed, face turned toward the light, like a sunflower. And for the first time in 3 years, he whispered a quiet truth he finally believed. It's okay to start again.